A couple months ago I made a video in which I re-reviewed PUBG and gave it a solid eh. So I thought fuck it, I'll give Fortnite a try. I might as well smash a few red arrows in the thumbnail too. Fortnite Battle Royale was recommended to me with the pretense that it did the things I care about way better than PUBG does, those being gameplay, server performance, and client performance. Gameplay is a very vague term in this context, and quite honestly these two games are so different that I consider the gameplay portion to be of equal quality, but completely different flavour. It's apples and oranges. Just because they're both the perfect size and shape to shove up your ass doesn't mean they'll both taste the same afterwards. One is a slow, patient shooter with mechanics not dissimilar to a simplified version of Armour, and the other one is a tightly controlled, close combat focused Roblox mod. This is important because any discussion that acts like these games are basically the same fucking thing has diverged into something akin to the console wars. Except this time, instead of arguing about two conceivably decent pieces of hardware, the argument is now about two games whose strongest similarity beyond genre is their desire to sell you £20 cosmetic items. This is not a micro-transaction, this is a transaction. The main gameplay difference is pace, of course. Fortnite is a much more action-packed game which, within this genre, can be either a positive or negative. The result of its smaller map size and higher visibility is a game with far less long stretches of nothingness, meaning that combat encounters are far more frequent but less tense. Whereas in the case of PUBG, the long stretches of quiet help to build a sense of tension. The stakes always feel higher, even if they're not. Previously I would have told you that I prefer the PUBG style of doing things. I've always appreciated the quiet parts of games that give you time to absorb everything the game has to offer. But unlike single player games that use this quiet to enforce the storytelling, PUBG only ever gives you two emotions to feel in the quiet: tension or boredom. When it's tense, it leads to fantastic engagements, but when it's boring, it leads to frustrating deaths. These next two categories are really the meat and potatoes of this comparison, because no matter which of these games I end up preferring, I still don't consider either of them to be a quality product. Because recommending either of them with an argument of, well, it's not as bad as the other one, in regards to these next 2 points, is a recommendation as flaccid as a wet Weetabix. I don't know what it is about Battle Royale games and shit servers, but I assume it's an issue with having to facilitate 100 players simultaneously. But just because that's a reasonable excuse doesn't mean it corresponds to a reasonable experience. With Fortnite I was told that the server experience would be better, but I found it to be equal if not worse at times when compared to PUBG. Certainly being shot at around corners is slightly less of a problem in a game like Fortnite with its higher time to kill, but it's frustrating nonetheless. The matchmaking in Fortnite, however, is the Usain Bolt to PUBG's crippled legless blind man in terms of speed, which means that these moments of frustration at the servers are often remedied by getting into a fresh match. Sort of like how injecting heroin doesn't give you enough time to think about your life choices because you're too busy injecting heroin. PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds suffers from stuttering, crashing, and low FPS in many areas. Fortnite suffers from stuttering and crashing, the former of which is experienced by myself and everyone I've played it with, and the latter is experienced by 1 or 2 of my friends on a semi-regular basis. The frame rate situation in Fortnite is far less dire than that of PUBG. Thankfully the game runs well, and at this point with PUBG, I'll take anything I can get. So what's the verdict? Well, if it's worth anything, I'm certainly having more fun with Fortnite right now, probably more of a result of PUBG fatigue than anything else. But kind of anticlimactically, I'd have to say it's entirely down to you. You know what you like. What's your game library like? Are you an Overwatch guy or a Battlefield guy? Jam or Marmite? Monetization would be just about the only thing that would sway my decision if I didn't already own PUBG. I think the way that Fortnite handles microtransactions, while still horrible free-to-play garbage level expensive, is still better than paid random loot boxes in a game that already contains an entrance fee. If you haven't played either of them, then it's worth mentioning that one of them would be free to at least try. So PUBG Mobile it is. What the fuck was that?